Neo is actually a computer hacker. He's clearly in search for what the Matrix is. That right there is already an indication of like a believer. Like people going through life and they're like just working, seeing loved ones, going to sleep.
That's my testimony. I just woke up and I was like, bro, I'm so sick of this life. Like I don't see what's the purpose to doing this.
Can you imagine how many people are existing and not living?
What do you say to the people who don't like change?
We have to become more certain in who's leading us than where we're actually going. The biggest, most fascinating thing about the Matrix to me is how countercultural it is.
And I think as Christians, that's what we really need to strive for. We got to think of how did Jesus interact with these people?
Number one, I feel like God is Morpheus in the sense that every day he's asking you, which hand are you going to choose? Welcome to Sharp Podcast. I am your co-host, Jay.
And I'm Frank.
And we're back again.
Yes, we are.
Frank, I can't keep track of the episodes.
No, me neither.
But I like the consistency.
Yeah.
I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are growing just as we are trying to grow. Quick question. The first rep while working out, do you count it as a rep? The lift off, you know?
Yeah.
So if you're squatting, a lift off would be, you know, you pick it up, back up, set your feet, you know? If you're on a bench,
it's like
you pick the bench up. Yeah. I count that as one.
Do you count it as one?
Yeah, definitely. Because it takes work to get it up.
No, it does. I haven't kept track, so now that you asked, I'm going to. But I think I don't.
You don't count it as one?
For benching.
Really?
I usually don't. No. Because I'm trying to get bigger. So for you,
Me
you're probably
ready to I'm trying to get bigger too. I'm trying to get bigger too.
But I'm gonna start keeping track and see where I start my counting. I actually got to work out later today, so I'm gonna check it out.
Hope you guys are keeping up in the gym.
Summer's right around the corner. So
it is right around the corner.
You got goals to meet, you better start rushing to the gym.
Yeah. Staying busy is important.
Yeah, very important.
Yeah. Idle hands are the devil's play. You ever heard that phrase?
No.
You never heard that? Idle hands are the devil's play.
Oh, okay.
I've heard that before.
Yeah,
right?
I have.
I think it's true. You know, because when you're busy, you kind of you got to be busy with the right stuff, though.
You do.
Well,
you have to be.
So what do we got today?
We got just I feel a good conversation around a movie that you had saw recently.
Oh, The Matrix.
Yeah. It's
an old movie.
It was.
A lot of people who watched this, they weren't born when that movie came out. 1999.
Yeah, it's actually 26
years old.
Yeah, I've never seen the movie until you had mentioned it. I've never seen though.
You're kidding.
No, I'm serious. I don't
really. You actually did tell me that, and I was shocked.
Yeah, I don't watch too many movies. But why were you so impressed with the movie?
Well, because to me, it's so obvious that movie is like a representation of Christianity.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
The chosen one, Neo. Neo. It's so clear. He like rises back from the dead.
Yeah.
How is that possible?
Yeah. Yeah. It was interesting because I did watch it, and I think you need to watch a movie a few times to get everything.
You need to watch that movie a few times to get everything.
But there is a few things that I took note of, and I thought was really interesting how you said, I see a biblical lens through that movie, right? Especially with the world and how we live in the world. So yeah, I thought it was an interesting conversation. Maybe in this podcast we can bring up a few things that we saw.
Well, we can bring up the first thing, which is that, okay, I know the movie pretty well. So the first thing about the movie, if y'all have seen the movie, you would know, is that Neo is actually a computer hacker.
Yeah.
So he's constantly hacking programs for people, and they're paying him to do it. So while he's hacking these programs, he's clearly in search for what the Matrix is. He's like,
Mm.
why does it work this way? I've heard about this program. Is it real? Does it exist? That right there is already an indication of like a believer.
Mm-hmm.
Like people going through life and they're like just working, seeing loved ones,
Mm.
going to sleep, going on vacation, eating, gym, back to back,
Yeah.
back to back, back to back. Eventually, somewhere, your mind's got to scream to you like, there's
Yes.
got to be more to life than doing this on repeat for 70 years,
100%. Yeah.
And Neil's in that, he's sitting in that seat.
Yeah.
He's like, no, there's
Mm-hmm.
more. I know there's more. I feel it. I smell it. I taste it. I sense it.
Yeah.
And that's when they come to him.
Yep.
They
Right in the
like
beginning.
capture him. They're like, you're coming with us. We know you've been looking.
Right.
They started saying all this stuff in his ear. Remember in the movie?
They did, yeah.
They're like, we have answers for you. That would be like Christians, right? We have answers for you.
Yeah.
So that was legit. That was a great scene of the movie because I'm like, oh my God.
It's
It's like making Christianity so cool.
That's true. That's true. I relate to that. I relate to that, like that part 100%, and I'm sure you do, because that's my testimony. Like I know everyone has different testimonies, but that's my testimony. Nothing crazy. Just woke up and I was like, bro, I'm so sick of this life. Like I don't see what's the purpose to doing this, and so that's really what ultimately like brought me to Christ. I feel like he called me that morning. I woke up
that morning.
And that's why, like, when you were saying that, I was like, dang, that's so true. Because there's a lot of people, I'm sure, who had that experience with their faith.
Oh, definitely.
It's just like the same thing every day. And
on repeat.
Yeah, it's scary.
On repeat.
It's scary to live that way.
It's got to be. I mean, can you imagine how many people are existing and not living?
A lot.
Like, you're just here. There's no change of pattern, no change of thought.
What do you sorry to cut you off. What do you say to the people who don't like change? Because there's people who love living that way. Like they love the consistency. And there's people that hate change. What do you think about that?
First of all, let me say, I am those people.
Okay.
I dislike change very much. I like consistency. I like certainty. I like routine. I like a regimented schedule. I like to know where I'm going and how I'm going to do it and who I'm going to do it with. The unfortunate news that I have for people who like that is that will not fly if you decide to try to love God with all your heart.
Yeah.
It's just never going to happen.
That's true.
I don't even have to speak from my life. I mean, we could just look at the Bible.
Yeah.
One of the first greatest dudes to ever exist, Abraham. The first thing God tells him is something completely uncertain. Go to a land I will show you.
Yeah.
In other words, start walking and I'll tell you when to stop.
Jeez.
I wouldn't have gone anywhere, by the way. I'm just letting you know. I would not have set foot out of my house. I would be like, no, tell me where I'm going and then I'll go.
That's good.
But I don't know how much faith is required for somebody to take a step like that. But he did it.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, that was bold. That brother's cold. I mean, I don't know too many people that would just launch like that with no certainty.
Yeah.
So for those of you who dislike that feeling, you kind of have to get comfortable with it.
Yeah, you do.
And it's kind of intimidating.
Yeah.
Especially if you are like competent, you feel like you know enough about the world that you can move around and be successful. You just got to see yourself as dumb from now on. No, God is a smart one. Forget it. I'm dumb. You're right, God. My plan was terrible. What's your plan again? I don't agree with it, but I'm gonna try it. Yeah. You got to flip that script.
That's true. And what I love about that is Abraham's story. A lot of people, right, in the Bible too, we know him as the man of faith, right? Abraham, it says he was known for his faith. And man, when you study the life of Abraham, you really realize why he got that name. Because everything, like you said, that he did was by faith.
Everything.
When God called him, it was by faith.
Right.
Right? When the people that went with him, it was by faith. When Lot was with him, there was like a little tension. The decision was by faith. When they said, you can't be together anymore, you got to go separate. he let Lot pick. It was by faith, right?
Right.
And Lot picked what looked good, but then God still blessed him.
Yeah.
When he had a child, right? By faith. When he had to sacrifice a child. So I was just realizing, man, Abraham got that name he earned because his whole life, everything was like by faith.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't like to live my life like that. Everything by faith.
Yeah.
I mean, literally everything that you have that looks good, and then God says, "No, I want you to go give that up for me." But there's a blessing behind it. I mean, it's scary at times.
Oh, that's such a vulnerable place to be in, dog. Why do I want to be vulnerable the whole time?
Yeah.
Like just a dog on its back. Like, I can't walk, I can't move. I'm in a surrendered position. Like I just give up. But I hear people say this now. I have not gotten to this point of growth.
Yeah.
But I've heard people say, like on different podcasts and preach it, that we have to become more certain in who's leading us than where we're actually going. And if that's how I've lived my whole life before I really started making a good attempt at following Jesus. Like I was certain in where I was going, and I wasn't certain in who was leading.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I'm going over here, and I'm real secure in that. But now I had to flip that. It's not a place, it's a person.
Yeah.
Where my certainty comes from.
So good.
And I don't know. It's kind of hard to be certain in people that you can't see. If you've ever tried that. If you've ever tried.
Yes, yeah.
Why can't we see God? That would make things a lot easier.
Yeah.
If you could see God, like if you could schedule an appointment with him and see his face.
It would be very easy. Wait, you said something that I thought was very interesting. You said that that before you said that you were certain and your faith was in a thing or a place,
a destination,
but now
right?
it's in a person, right?
Right.
But when we're in that place of not trusting God and trusting the things and the places we're going, right? We feel more secure because we like control.
Right.
But when you get deeper into your faith and realize everything that Jesus can do for you and through you, when it switches to your faith being in a person who is him and not a thing or a place, it's like it makes more sense to have your faith in a person instead of a thing or a place that can always change. You get what I'm saying?
It makes more sense. You're right. There has to be a follow-up statement to that. It only makes more sense because you realize who the person actually is. Like this, some people see God as just like Frank.
Yeah.
Frank, no disrespect, but I ain't trusting you to follow me to, lead me to Texas on foot.
I wouldn't either.
I'm not trusting you with my finances. You're a good friend, but I'd rather trust myself.
Exactly.
Yeah. But when you realize who God is, it's like, you got to take some deep thought. Like this dude created the world. Job was complaining in prayer, like, why did this happen? Why did that happen? God was like, where were you when I formed these universes?
So that's why it's funny, because depending where we're at in life, it's like you look at yourself and you're like, yes, go after that dream that you want, right? And you're like, that's the way. But then when you realize that isn't the way and your faith goes into Jesus, then you're just like, you look on the flip side and you're like, what was I thinking? It's just funny where you're at in life, because where you're at currently, you think that's the best place.
Right.
But ultimately, when you're following Jesus, to me, that's the best place to be. So it's just funny how we can be so like blind depending where we're at.
I'm blind all the time. I mean, it's just so funny that, okay, so the Matrix, right? The biggest, most fascinating thing about the Matrix to me is how countercultural it is to the real world. Like there's a digital world, an artificial world in a movie, and then there's a real world where they live like crap and they're eating oatmeal every day and they're in a machine and they're fighting for their lives. I'm fascinated at the fact that those two worlds coexist.
Yeah.
And we have to balance those two worlds. Like even though one is way more real than the other, they still have to coexist in them. They have to figure out, what am I capable over here and what am I capable over here? And that's, I don't know, that's wild to me.
Yeah.
Because sometimes
What?
you ever heard the phrase, you don't want to be so spiritually
Yeah.
in tune that you're no
Uh-huh.
earthly good,
Yeah.
and you don't want to be so earthly good that you're no spiritual use.
That's true.
You ever heard that joke? People like
Yeah.
everything you say, they just bring you spirit. Man, I'm looking for my keys. The keys to the kingdom?
Yeah.
Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah.
Keys to the kingdom?
Yeah.
You gonna pray before you eat that potato chip? You know,
Right. Yeah. I
you got
was
to figure that one out.
Yeah, and that's a process.
Yeah.
That's a process. I honestly think that's something I noticed a lot of, or a lot more, when we were in school, because I was never around that where people were so spiritual, and everything. I guess I was around more people that were more earthly, secular, worldly,
More
but
practical.
yeah. But when I went to school, then it flipped. Like, people were more spiritual than anything, but some of it was just like you need a little bit of practicality in your life, and
I
that's
don't
why I
even.
love how you said that. It's like learning
Yeah.
how the two worlds
I mean,
coexist.
yeah, you got. Listen, you can't pray for God to brush your teeth. You gotta brush your teeth. Okay. I don't want to hear that. I know this. Listen, I've been watching some Instagram videos,
Uh-huh.
man. People are doing some ridiculous things.
Like what? Tell me more.
Bruh,
What's the
I
craziest thing?
I think the most recent one I seen on Instagram was this prophet in Africa telling people to buy these pillowcases that he prayed for. Hundreds of pillowcases, and they're all like $100 each. And he's like, the moment you fall asleep on this pillowcase, you're gonna have a dream with angels and Jesus.
Oh my goodness.
And
people fall for that.
Bro,
that's a sad thing.
I just can't believe people. Do not buy those pillowcases, okay?
Please
go
don't.
to Target like everybody else. Oh, we're boycotting Target, my bad.
For real.
I'm just kidding.
Man. Oh, yeah. You gotta be politically correct.
We got political here.
No, I don't know
but
about that.
I don't know why people fall for that. That ain't real. That's just not, I thought that was obvious.
Yeah, there's.
Yeah, I thought it was
It's sad, and I think things like that are what turn people away sometimes to.
Oh, that's got to be a huge factor. We look like a joke selling pillowcases and,
I've seen other things. What were they selling
some
recently?
wild stuff.
Yeah, they were selling. Yeah, don't buy anything.
Listen, don't buy nothing crazy. If somebody told, there was another video I seen. The guy told him, God told me you got to give me all the money in your bank account, and in a month your situation's gonna change. Listen, do not give that man all the money in your bank account. Okay?
Yeah,
you give your offerings, pay your tithes, and just trust in God that way. All this silly stuff going on. It's so easy not to trust.
It is. It's very,
very.
You definitely need some wisdom in this.
Yeah, but even those people we met in Bible college that we would call like spiritual.
Yeah,
that wasn't really spiritual. It was like overcompensation.
Yeah,
it's like the only way I could explain it is through an athletic lens.
Okay,
it's like when you go hoop and there's like somebody with a Jordan headband, a Jordan jersey, Jordan sneakers, and they play like trash.
Yeah,
just hitting bricks after bricks. That's what I see being over spiritualized.
Yeah,
like if you just always making things probably more than they are. You might be shooting bricks.
It's true. And I mean, maybe you can touch on this, but even Jesus, though, when he was here, I don't, when I'm reading the gospel, I don't really see Jesus being over spiritual like some of these people I've experienced. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I see those interactions he had with people, meeting their physical needs, but always bring that spiritual health and fullness, right? And salvation to them. Like the woman at the well, asking for water. And then they were talking about water. And then he switches to, girl, what I have is what you need. Not only in the physical, but in the spiritual. And I think as Christians, that's what we really need to strive for. Obviously, those, what was it, the bracelets that were popular, what would Jesus do? But but like that, we got to think of, how did Jesus interact with these people. You know what I'm saying? He was. I don't remember him speaking in tongues and selling spiritual pillowcases. You know, no, I'm saying I didn't see him do a lot of that. I saw him meet the people where they were at practically, but he knew their need for the spirit, right? The depths they needed in the spiritual, and he fulfilled that coming to him. So I think that's so important. Like that's an important takeaway as a believer. Like I don't know who you're growing up around or learning from or who your mentor is, but I don't think you need to be overly spiritual. I honestly think that's a turnoff to a lot of people.
Not only is it a turnoff, but it's just not real. It's just not true.
Yeah.
You know, like if you have an authentic relationship with anybody, there is no need to prove that you have it.
Exactly.
I don't go around telling people I know Frank really well. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah.
People get like, who the hell is Frank and why are you talking to me, bro?
That's so true. Yeah.
They're just gonna see me, you know, hanging out with you. They're gonna see that we got history and we're on social media together. You know, it's just gonna show.
Yeah, it's gonna
be obvious.
Well, okay, then that goes into, you know, how people come to know Jesus, right? I believe God calls each person that accepts him, right? Mm-hmm. But people are drawn to Jesus. People are also drawn to church because of the way others live.
Right.
It's to me, I haven't seen it being too common where people are reading their Bible, and then that draws them into, like, let's say a church.
Right.
A lot of the times it's them interacting and seeing someone and the way they live and the way they act and the way they speak and the way they care. Right. And that's what really draws them even closer to God or brings them into a church. So, you know, I think that relates. Like, man, we are such an example. So the way we carry ourselves has a huge impact.
Huge impact, world. Yeah, and it always will. I mean, I think there's a scripture. Not I think, I know. I know there's a scripture that says, "This is the way they will know you in the world, and it's the way by you love one another." Mm-hmm. Didn't add anything else to that sentence.
No.
You know, it just said the affection, the camaraderie, the compassion, the empathy, and the love you have for one another. It's gonna do miracles that healing somebody's foot could not possibly do.
That's good.
You know, we could heal somebody's foot and then they just walk out the church. Thank y'all. Appreciate you. Man, but when you're there for people, when they're having a tough time, for some reason people never forget that.
No, they don't.
Never.
They don't.
And they feel like this is a place I need to be. Like I'm loved here.
Welcomed, accepted, right?
And that's something we see in the Matrix too.
Yeah.
He finds his group of people. Bro, they're like a tight-knit group. They're all fighting the same battle. Mm-hmm. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
When you find that. So if you got a church to go to where you feel that way, don't leave.
That's true.
Because it's kind of difficult to find, I'd say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Authentic folks, imperfect people that love Jesus.
For real.
Yeah.
There was one question I had in the Matrix, but I feel like we talked about it. But if there's anything else you want to add. And I remember, if you guys are watching the movie or want to go back to it, this was at minute 27. I was specific with it. But he's explaining to Neo the Matrix, what it is. And then he mentioned something along the lines that the Matrix is everywhere. And it says that we're all slaves to the Matrix.
Right.
I kind of want to bring our podcast to a close there, talking about being a slave to the Matrix. I know we talked a little bit about it in the beginning of the podcast, but what do you think? What do you think that means, or how do you see it, or how have you experienced it? Like, can you be specific with your story of how did you feel like a slave to the world?
Well, number one, I feel like God is Morpheus in the sense that every day he's asking you, which hand are you going to choose? You're going to do like basically what Joshua said, choose this day whom you will serve. Yeah. You're going to take the red pill or the blue pill. You're going to serve me or you're going to follow yourself. Like, which one is it you're going to do today? Yeah. And God presents us with that opportunity every day, which is why he says his mercies are new every morning. Yeah. You know, So, number one, if you made a mistake or you fell deeply out of your own volition, just know that every morning God has new grace, an opportunity for you to renew that. So, number two, we know that in the book of we know that in the book of Ephesians, the book of Ephesians talks about the book of Ephesians talks about how there's the prince of the power of this world, which would be the devil, and he's coordinating everything on this earth. I'm talking about music, I'm talking about culture, I'm talking about celebrities, everything that moves our education system. I mean, teachers, professors, universities, whatever has to do with this world system, political systems, he's moving the pieces. He's carefully crafting how this world is going to work in his advantage. So that right there already tells you the system is against everybody who's trying to pursue God. And I'm not saying that to intimidate anybody, but you could see it. Like the moment you start making a decision, like I'm gonna try to follow Jesus and avoid my self-fulfillment, you're gonna start to see how hard it is. It's like an uphill battle, you know. So that I think would be why the Matrix is so relevant, because we're living in a world that we're seeing is contrary to who we truly are. And you only start to see that once you follow Jesus.
That's so
It's
good.
like flipping the script. It is kind of crazy though. You know,
is.
like you want to. I ain't never been tempted to pray. You've been tempted to pray?
No,
Oh, I want to pray so bad.
I've never been.
Ooh, I can't wait to pray. You've been tempted to tithe?
No, I've never.
Have you been tempted to stay a virgin?
No,
never. That's never happened to me. Never, and it never will. You want to know why? Because everything in us and outside of us is in opposition to what we're trying to accomplish, you know? So in that sense, the Matrix is like all around us in that sense.
That's true.
It's just waiting for opportunities for us to fall, for us to fail, for us to be doubtful, for us to not be confident, for us to slack, you know? And I'm not saying you got to be on your A game every single moment of every day, but I am saying just be aware that the only place you're safe is like amongst other believers who love you and in God's presence. When you go out into that world, there's a strategy against you. It's been pre-planned every day before you get up, put your feet on the floor. It's already been like structured. You know, today we're going to hit George with this, this, and this. Frank, we're going to hit you with this, this, and this at work. We're going to see how you handle it. We're going to see if you're a Christian or not. And boy,
so good.
Do I feel that test every day, especially in my job, boy. Whoo! I got so many opportunities to cuss people out. Sometimes I pass that test.
Sometimes. Dang, that's so good. All right, so let's leave the people with the tip to stay sharp throughout the week. I'll go first, and my tip is, I want to go to the slave, living this world as a slave to this world. And my tip is just very simple. Everything that you're doing that's a priority in your life, or you feel is like the most important thing, I want you to try to reflect on it. Like, just step back and reflect, why am I doing this? I think that's so crucial. When you're going through the motions, it's just a routine.
Right.
And you don't realize like what impact this has on your life, or what is the true purpose. So my tip is just the things that are so important to you, the things that you spend the most time on, just take a step back and just think outside the box and think, what is this adding? How is this adding to my life? What's the purpose of this? Where is it leading me? I think that's a good way to start to realize what are things in your life that you're being a slave to.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll piggyback off of what you said. I don't know why, but I've been looking into Solomon. And just because we said we were going to talk about the Matrix today, that dude had everything you could possibly want in the Matrix, in this world. He had riches beyond your wildest imagination. He had amounts of women beyond your wildest imagination. Gardens. Today it would be like cars and gold and money and yachts, whatever you could think of. But yet at the end of the books that he wrote in the Bible, he wrote it's all meaningless.
Yeah.
None of it. Now, this dude's still considered the richest man to ever live. And he still writes, none of it's worth it.
None of it.
So if a guy writing counsel advice to us who had everything that normal people are kind of chasing, take his advice.
I agree.
He said, I chased it. I accomplished the highest form you could possibly imagine. And it was not worth it. The only time I found life worth living was when I pursued Jesus.
That's good.
When I pursued wealth, it wasn't worth it. Lust, it wasn't worth it. Pride, power, money, none of it was worth it. And that's astounding to me because he goes into it deeply. So consider what Frank is saying. Reflect on what you're prioritizing. And then reflect on Solomon saying, if it's not God, it's not even that worth it.
That's so good.
You know?
Well, thanks for watching. We want to ask you to like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you next week. Take care.